Today I'm at the bench tying some 3/8 bucktails. Stay tuned. So good morning. Today I'm at the bench and I got just a odd selection of heads. Let's get set up properly here. Don't have anything on this morning. Oh my goodness. So if you've watched the last few videos over the last month or two, you would have noticed, or I've talked a lot about airbrushing heads. I'm not going to airbrush all my jigs from now on. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I am trying to get a lineup of at least a half a dozen patterns that I will do regularly and keep in my inventory. So have been playing with the airbrush, mostly trying to figure out and really nail down how to best spray pearls. Pearls have been a little difficult because of the consistency and because of the just the extra stuff in it, making it pearl. And so I'm struggling. I can paint a half a dozen, maybe a dozen jigs just fine, but then I start having problems with my airbrush. I know it's a combination of the way I'm mixing it, my air pressure, the needle size. There's a handful of things are affecting it. I'm going to work through that only because, particularly, one color that we're going to tie today is I'm trying to come up with a purple head that not only will have some of those pearl qualities, but also lean into those shades of black. So from black to purple. I have a couple heads here. We'll just show you real quick. 3/8 flat, which I had an abundance of in my inventory of my blanks. And this is with a specific purple. This paint flows super nice, and this is over a pearl white base. I'm not sure if you can see it all that well on camera, but it does have a nice pearly color. Here's that Barumba head in that same color, but as you can see on the top, if you look at it directly on it, it's almost black, and that's what I'm kind of going for. This head is probably the closest to what I would really like. I would like it, instead of a pearl white, I want a pearl plum on the belly, and then as it goes to the top, be a nice transition into purple and then black without using black. So I have a couple different colors. I really want to nail down how to best use and spray the pearl purple that I have, because it's just a really neat paint color. But I wanted to put some hair on these, and while I was doing everything, I figured I'd just turn on the lights and turn on the cameras. So we're going to tie a bucktail today on the 3/8 flat. And black and purple is the most popular color on lakes here locally in central New York State. And that's what I'm trying to come up with, is a really nice black and purple pattern. So I start by locking on my size A round nylon thread, unwaxed, nothing fancy. And let's just, I got a couple bucktails here, some are better than others. pinch of black bucktail. And as always, begin by removing those short fibers and broken hairs from the butt end. And then I switch my grip and I restack, not looking to make this look like it went through a hair stacker. We're just removing some of those longer tips and placing them back in the pinch. If there's any broken tips or just a hair that looks out of place, it's too crooked compared to all the rest, I just pull it right out. We can measure by switching our grips and adjusting the length of our pinch. While we measure, the tail will be the length of the body past the bend of the hook. Switch my grip one last time and keep this pinch tight, tight, tight. I'm going to keep this nice and tight while I fix this bobbin. This is a new spool that I have on here. So I know this is good thread. Still kept this pinch tight. Lock this back into place. Five wraps towards the bend of the hook, 3 wraps back towards the head. We have our V shape, and now I can just give this a twist, putting that dark color on what will become the back of the jig. We go to our purple tail. Recently I've been doing a little bit of reading. I had a book from Ray Bergman, who's I know primarily as a fly fisherman, and the information that I've read of his over the years mostly had to do with fly tying or fly fishing. And there was a book I found. It's called Just Fishing, and it, like I said, by Ray Bergman. It was first published in 1932, and the copy I had was published in 1940. Some of the interesting things is he talks about rivers that I'm familiar with. You know, I fish the Delaware. That's only about 20 minutes from me, in the Susquehanna River, also either in Pennsylvania or just about a mile from the house here in New York State. And he was talking about jigging for walleye. So in reading this, a lot of the lures that they were using seemed to be, he was talking mostly about streamer flies and fishing for pike and walleye. But the one section in the walleye chapter talked about using just a plain hook with a worm, though all the illustrations and all the comments that he made seemed to do with a longer shank hook, similar to what you would use for streamer tying, tipped with a worm. So again, locking this on, a few wraps towards the bend of the hook, a few wraps back towards the head. I'm going to kind of break up my conversation here. I was thinking about going with just the plain red Flashaboo, the flat tinsel, but again, if you've watched any of my videos most recently, the last 6 months or so, I am a big fan of the New Age Crinkle Flash, and this Cherry Pearl is super nice. So my monitor just went out for some reason, but looks like the camera's okay. So this cherry pearl, it's got red, pink, gold, purple. There's a lot of nice flashes of light in here, and I've used this before on a couple other patterns. It's this New Age crinkle flash is just a material that I think looks fantastic. So getting back to Bergman's book, he talks about using jigging spoons, and then he talks about adding weight near the bait. Now, trying to figure out what that meant. Near the bait, did he put a weight on the line? I've done a few videos tying streamers that I've used in the Susquehanna, where I talk about adding a weight 8 to 12 inches up the line and just side jigging a streamer, just pulling it when I'm fishing from the riverbank. And it's a type of jigging. Or was he, he said it says that he added weight near the bait. It didn't say near the hook. It didn't say on the hook, but it said near the bait. So to me, that possibly could have been weighting the hook, adding weight to the hook. In essence, creating a jig, a weighted hook, just like a jig head, and then jigging it for walleye. And I think he was talking about the West Branch of the Delaware River, as well as the Susquehanna, the section that is down in Pennsylvania, near the West Branch. So the Susquehanna is kind of funny the way it drops down into Pennsylvania, comes back up into New York State, and then goes back down into Pennsylvania. So he's fishing, I'm guessing, the branch towards the Great Bend area of Pennsylvania. But I found that very interesting. Like I said, the book I have was published in 1940. So in those writings, there was no mention of a jig like we're tying here today. But the practice, the style of fishing, the way they fished, specifically for walleye in this case, they were using a weighted jig. So his description was, he was talking about using a night crawler, but also talked about either minnows or eels, which are in abundance in the Delaware River. Again, I lock the tinsel on with a few reps towards the bend of the hook and a few reps back towards the head. I've trimmed the tinsel just shy of the same length as the hair. I don't like to let it extend past that. My thought being that if you have any longer hairs or the tinsel that extends, you end up getting more short strikes and you miss a lot of fish. So we finish this off, walking this up to the head, and then back about halfway, and then back up to the head. And I will finish this jig with a loop of size A thread of a different color. Place it underneath my last wrap of thread, and I can walk the thread about a quarter of the way back and then back to the head. Keep this tag end taut between your hand and the jig, and then you can pull it through. So Bergman's book was very interesting. I'm going to try to find some more of his information to see if he expands on that in any other books on fishing, primarily for pike or walleye. And we know that, you know, jigs for freshwater, for the fish that we're tying them for, didn't really come into practice until sometime around the 60s, early 60s, very late 50s, most certainly after Korea, I would guess, the Korean War, that time period. So let's turn my face off and let's take a look at this jig. So this is a pattern that's pretty popular. You know, the red collar, black and purple hair with some sort of red tinsel. I notched it up just a hair using that New Age crinkle flash. It's called Cherry Pearl, which has blues, purples. There's some gold in there. I really like this New Age crinkle flash. So I'm just going to play with a few different patterns here. I'm just trying some things out. I want to see how the hair looks with these heads sprayed the way they are. I haven't painted up enough where I probably won't fish with these, at least right away. More often than not, if I'm trying out something new, the first and second ties that I do will go into my file cabinet, and I kind of keep them there and reference them and look back. You know, sometimes during the design I might go too far in terms of the paint and the design of a jig, so I might refer back to some of my original concepts and either ratchet it back a little bit, or be reminded of something that I did that I'm not doing as I'm trying to work through a design. But I think this jig looks really pretty. I'm going to tie up these other heads the exact same way, just so I can put them side by side and compare them, and then I will do at least one more once I work out that pearl issue, you know, because I would like to be able to spray. I do about 1,000 heads at a time. I might not tie them all at the same time, but I try to have a nice stock of painted heads, so if it is a color that people really want, aside from just the plain black head with the black and purple tail, then yeah, I'll have them available and I can start painting. So I hope you found the little bit of history. You know, I didn't really want to put that into a video, but I did want to talk about it because I just read about it. And I'm sure I've looked at this book half a dozen times since I've owned it. And just, you know, this last time flipping through it, that's what caught my eye. So really interesting. Like I said, the book was my version, published in 1940s, or 1940 specifically, 1940. And he was talking about jigging for walleye with a weighted hook. At least that's what it sounds like. Adding weight near the bait and fishing for walleye with nothing but a night crawler. So there wasn't hair on it. The discussion of the hair was in the previous chapter talking about pike, and then it folds into or unfolds into the walleye chapter. But kind of interesting. So I want to find some more of his information, more writings from Bergman, to just try to piece together. And like with most of our trying to look back through history, we're just trying to take these little pieces and see where the puzzle pieces fit to determine the best that we can what they were actually doing. So I'm looking forward to maybe finding some more of his writing. Hopefully I can find something soon, but we'll see. It could be a while before I get around back to doing that. So, but I think that will do it for us today. As always, like and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Feel free to share any of our videos because it does help increase awareness for the channel. And as always, keep tying in tight lines.